Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Find a plan that goes with your flow. Get unlimited local talk, text, and data at the most affordable rate with Unlimited Flow Postpaid, only at Docomo Pacific.
Wendy's Guam's new Thin Mint Frosty is here. It's swirled with Wendy's chocolate mint sauce inspired by the flavor of Girl Scouts Thin Mints. This is no dream, people. Be sure to get your hands on that thin, minty, chocolatey, frosty goodness while you can. The new Thin Mints Frosty won't be around forever. Head on over today. Gotta be Wendy's. Cold Stone Guam's very berry non-dairy is very berry delicious. This creation is deliciously made with silk chocolate almond milk, strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries. Vegans and non-vegans alike will fall for this plant-based, vegan, dairy-free, and lactose-free frozen dessert made with silk chocolate almond milk. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Kandit News is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Good evening, my dear friends. It is 5:29 p.m. on Thursday, March 6, 2025. My name is Troy Torres. Thank you so much for joining me for today's Kandit Live. Sometimes most of the time we'll have one show a day. Sometimes we'll have two shows a day. When I'm lazy or very busy, we'll have no shows. The more this 38th Guam Legislature does, the more we are able to see what productivity looks like versus the hot air that was traveling forth from the farts of the senators of the 37th and 36th Guam legislatures. Case in point, David Lebowski, whose 5-year-old son, Asher Dean Lebowski, Asher Dean died on October 31, 2018, due to medical malpractice. That's not my opinion. That is the result of an independent investigation by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services when they did a surprise audit of Guam Memorial Hospital, and they chose Asher Dean's case and the case of 3 or 4 other people, if I can remember correctly, in that report where they detail the malpractice that led to Asher Dean's death at GMH. But it was since then that David Lebowski has pioneered and led a movement, a campaign to reform, not for him because it was too late for him, but for anybody else who, God forbid, would go through what David Lebowski did, losing a relative to medical malpractice. Trying to reform the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act. It was an act instituted 17 legislatures ago by the 21st Guam Legislature that all but insulated doctors and bad doctors from facing the consequences of malpractice. What the law did, what the law does, is it requires anyone with a claim of medical malpractice. And in order for you to have a claim of medical malpractice, either you had to be the person butchered, or it was somehow your relative in accordance with the law, your relative who was killed by medical malpractice, then you could have a claim. But in order to ever see anything come out from that claim, the law right now requires you to file a claim for arbitration, have an arbitration panel that comes in from the states impaneled, and you have to pay for all of this, pay for their boarding in Guam, you have to pay for the whole kit and caboodle. The starting cost of arbitration is about estimated to be about $20,000, but it goes up to more than $100,000. And so arbitration, when Judge Frances Tadinko Gatewood, the federal judge, looked at one of these cases, she admitted on the record that the way the current local law is set up, it prevents people who can't afford $20,000 to $100,000 in out-of-pocket costs from ever pursuing accountability and justice for the maiming and killing of themselves and relatives due to medical malpractice. It has shut out the poor, the middle class, and even the upper middle class from having any sort of recourse when something bad happens on the medical side. And so when something bad did happen to Asher Dean Lebowski, and his father, David Lebowski, went through the motions of this thing, wanted to file a claim, and found out that he needed to pursue this arbitration thing, and it's a very difficult thing to do according to the law. He set out on a journey, on a campaign, to pressure the Guam legislature to change the law. And he got somewhere. In the last couple of legislatures with Therese Terlahi, while she was the speaker, she introduced Bill 112-37, which would replace the arbitration process, the mandatory arbitration process, with a mandatory pre-screening process over the Superior Court of Guam to allow a judge. So opening the doors for the poor, the middle class, the upper middle class, and of course the rich already have recourse. They, according to the current law, they can afford something like this. But, oh, Debbie's saying that I froze. I'm not sure what happened, Deb. But I'm showing that there are no drop frames in this thing. Let me know in the comments if anything further happens. So, where was I? So Therese Terlahi, she introduces this bill in the last legislature, and she has several public hearings on it. And she was, I believe that she was sincere about it. I believe that she wanted it to pass. I believe that she fought very hard for that bill, for medical malpractice reform in this island. She was met with resistance. Other senators were met with resistance by not all doctors, but a group of doctors led by, it seemed to be led by Dr. Tom Shea. They made all kinds of threats against senators. It was a full court press against passage of medical malpractice reform. And so senators eventually gave in to that pressure. Tom Shea won that campaign. And for whatever reason, then Speaker Terlahi did not rehabilitate the effort, did not try again. She was the Speaker of the Legislature. Chris Barnett was the Rules Chairman. They had control of the legislature. Well, they had control of the leadership of the legislature. You know, all these different sort of politics came into play, and they didn't actually have control of the numbers. And we can have a whole separate conversation about the effectiveness of those previous leaders of the legislature. But that's that's neither here nor there for this topic. So this new legislature comes in. And in January, first in October, from September to October, Kandit interviewed almost all of the Republicans, actually every single Republican who made it into the legislature except for Tello Taitigui during the campaign season. And all of them talked about how they would be open to medical malpractice reform. And so in January, I sent a series of questions to all senators asking them if they're, among other things, open to medical malpractice accountability reform. And almost all of them said yes. Almost all of them responded, and all of them who did responded said yes, that they are open for it, except for Senator Sean Gumatauto, who was a little more general in his answers, but otherwise he seemed open to it. And there were 3 senators who said that they would be open to introducing legislation. It's current Health Committee Chairwoman Sabrina Salas Matanani, former Vice Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, and Senator Parkinson. And so today, Senator Parkinson made good on that promise. He introduced Bill number 82-38, which would open wide the doors for the poor, the middle class, and the upper middle class who believe that they are victims of medical malpractice to access the court system directly, getting rid of the mandatory arbitration statute in this proposed statute, replacing it with a pre-screening process, and in a 27-page bill, a description of that process from the notification, from the time of the notification of a pre-screening claim, all the way through to a trial de novo. And get this, according to this bill, a pre-screening judge, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into this bill, like a whole bunch of different requirements about what's evidence and what's not evidence and what can be entertained during a pre-screening process and whatever, right? So aside from the pre-screening judge pre-screening out frivolous claims, based on the standard that they use here in this bill is standard of care, the medical standard, the appropriate standard of care for whatever field it is, right? And so based on the evidence, the judge can side with the claimant. And if the judge says that the evidence shows that the claimant's claim is valid, the judge can, right after making that decision, decide monetary damages. I mean, this is really a bill that sides with patients. It does the complete opposite of what the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act does, which is preclude the vast majority of Guamanians and those having claims of medical malpractice from ever having justice see the light of day. It turns that around in a heartbeat and allows these people to go to court. They don't even have to have an attorney. And if whatever party loses in the pre-screening process, there's a process for appeal and a trial de novo and all this stuff. So this is a patient's rights bill when it comes to medical malpractice. And it was introduced by Democrat Will Parkinson, who happens to have a good relationship with both Adelup and the Republican majority, except for Tello Taitigui, who those two do not get along. But it doesn't matter. Tello Taitigui has all but been written off by the other Republican senators, on my understanding of things, because of her silliness. And so there's a good chance that this bill could pass by the numbers. There's a good chance, depending on what the amendments are to this bill, that the governor might consider signing this bill. We might actually have Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act reform within the next couple of years, thanks to the pioneering and hard work of David Lebowski, the hard work of Will Parkinson in answering this call by David Lebowski. And you know, David Lebowski's been very critical of Will Parkinson. So I don't see this as some sort of like, it's not like Will Parkinson did this because he likes David Lebowski. I'm pretty sure that he's seen what David Lebowski's written about him online, or said about him in public hearings or whatever. But these are two people who are not friends, but they see eye to eye on this issue, apparently. The one thing that I think is missing from this bill that will become an issue, aside from the issues that Tom Shea and others might have about opening the doors for doctors to be sued, the issue that I think that will come up and that is relevant is the fact that this legislation does not appropriate more money to the Superior Court of Guam. So this mandate for this pre-screening is a mandate on the Superior Court of Guam. And so there's this whole process that's laid out, pre-screening judge or whatever. I would have to imagine that the Superior Court, the trial courts, would want more judges, would want more resources, more staff, and because they're already overloaded with all the criminal cases and the civil cases before them. This is going to add, maybe there won't be like 20 claims per year. Maybe there will be 5 claims per year or 15 claims per year. But that's still 5 to 15 claims more than they have now. 5 to 15 docket cases than they have now. It's quite a bit. And the Superior Court needs resources. So I would imagine that one of the amendments to this bill, in working in conjunction with the Superior Court, maybe in the markup of this bill, would be a dollar amount appropriated to the Superior Court every year, so that they are able to afford this new pre-screening process. Steve and Liz Almaguin says, we went to see a lawyer and explained to us the process and realized the arbitration process are only good for families with deeper pockets. Yeah, you're going to have $20,000 to $100,000 in cash right up front in order to be able to participate in arbitration. Steve and Liz say, I hope this bill passes. We lost a child from misdiagnosis by a physician in mid-90s, but was not able to afford going through the process. I'm so sorry, you guys. I did not know that you lost a child. And so you're in the same boat as David Lebowski. And the reason that David Lebowski is championing this matter has nothing to do with him getting compensation or suing anybody. He's already gone through that whole process. That whole process is done. His son already died. He died at a time when the MMMAA barred him from taking the doctors who allegedly committed the malpractice directly to the Superior Court for damages. He's taken it to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. He's taken the nurses involved to the Guam Board of Nursing, a whole separate subject that we absolutely intend to get to, with the problems with the GBME and the problems with the Guam Board of Nursing when it comes to these claims being adjudicated in favor of patients, or at the very least to not be so slanted toward the doctors who are being complained about. David Lebowski's done this all. He's lived through this nightmare ever since October 31, 2018. And I have to imagine that news like this, even though it's someone who he doesn't agree with politically, the fact that he has Will Parkinson on his side, when David Lebowski sees this, I have to imagine he's going to feel good about this. He's going to feel good about the journey that he's been on, because all that guy wants, all he's ever wanted, was to prevent another parent from going through the nightmare that began for him on October 31, 2018, when he lost his son, Asher Dean Lebowski, to medical malpractice. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. You all have a wonderful evening. God bless you all, and I love you all. Keep smiling.
We got that dynamite. We got that dynamite.
Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport, starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.